Hi, ladies and gents, and welcome to my channel. I will do another GM prep video today. It's actually almost the end of the day, but I'm drinking some decaf coffee because I'm playing in, let me check the time, in 45 minutes exactly. I will be GMing my next session. Uh, so we're really into it. What did I prep for this session 36? In this session, for those who follow the series, in the last session, our group, they were heading to Thistle to have a kind of a downtime. And at the end of last session, Dhistle the Old in the temple gave Lodemei, the Templar, the PC Templar, the mission to protect Sarvola against the Sellwords of the Sun, or to get rid of the Sellwords of the Sun. For those who know, the adventure we're about to start soon enough, called Wrath of the Warden, this side quest that Dhistle the Old gives to the PCs is supposed to be part of this adventure. I plucked it out. I will do a video completely dedicated to the structure of this adventure and to ideas of how you can take the elements of this adventure and really connect them to your PCs, because the way it's written as is feels somewhat railroady. Like many times the PCs receive side quests that I don't see them really getting into that easily, because it's not that, how could you say, the motivations are weak to pursue those side quests. So, but they're interesting. They're fun side quests. It's just that maybe you can use them at another time in your campaign, not necessarily in the middle of Wrath of the Warden. So that's what I'm starting to do today with my group. I had to prep because I did my prep already. Of course, I didn't. I busted the 1 hour limit. I'll tell you why in just a sec. My challenge with this prep right now is that we're a bit in between adventures, and I want to keep some things going, like some tension, but not too much, because I want to let the winter pass in the game. I don't want them to pursue something really aggressively right away. But every evening needs to have a little something, a little reveal, a little something. So last time we were wrapping up the expedition in the Blooming Vale. We had an encounter with the Sellwords of the Sun that are the arch enemy of one of the PCs. So there was a bit of a threat there. So a little seed planted in for what's next, and we started some downtime. So now this session, my challenge was to prepare a session where it's going to be partly some downtime, like downtime type activities. Maybe like a shopping episode for those who follow a crit roll. Of course, it won't be really shopping as such. It will be more like politicking, faction play, stuff like that. Preparing, learning new rituals and things like that. So I asked my players to tell me what they want to do during this downtime. I received a ton of stuff. And now I had to figure out, okay, how do I organize tonight's game in a way that will feel interesting and engaging, even though it's downtime. We're playing over the internet on Zoom, so it's maybe a bit more of a challenge, because when you're at a real table with people around the table, you can just hang out together and have, it can be really loose and you'll still have a really nice evening. When you're online, people have Zoom fatigue. I think you can't just hang around as well. So you need to really have something a bit more condensed, a bit more structured maybe, to keep the attention of everybody going. So when I sat down, I had so many threads. I was a bit I was a bit overwhelmed by what do I do with this spaghetti of stuff, and how do I set up the next parts of the story, because of course I follow the players, but the players follow me. It's a dance, it's a tango. We're both following each other. So I've tried giving them nothing and just saying, okay, this is a sandbox, have fun. And with my players, that doesn't work. They're not into that at all. They are looking for the narrative. They want a story. They don't want to write the story. They want to participate in the story. Of course, they write it by their choices, but they don't want to sort of go hard on their own backstories, for example, and make them the story of the game. So when they give me all that stuff, well, the expectation is that I will sort of organize something out of that. So let's go see what I had at the beginning. So this is my homepage on the Roll20 site. Let's just go to my prep document. So my first question was what is the first scene of the session, and I thought I need to do something with Beau. Beau the goblin had a really nice moment during the meeting with the Ordo Magica, where they split the profits of the expedition to the Vale. They asked the players to talk about what happened and to give a report, and the first person to speak was Beau, which is always completely like, let's say he doesn't know about protocol, and and he was really funny. So he had a little monologue moment there that was really, really funny. But then that was pretty much it for the rest of the session for him. So I wanted to start off with this player because I don't want him to feel left out, and I really like his character. And some players are more into they're more into giving, like, they have tons of ideas for their characters, and they have ideas where they want to go, who they want to meet, the scenes they want to have. This player is not that proactive. He has a bit, but sometimes he can be a bit more passive. And I just find that, like, if I don't take care of him, he will have less screen time, and it's unfair because he's a really good player. His character is really great. And so he deserves as much screen time as everybody. So that was the first thing I thought. The second thing was, what are the ingredients that I can use to have some tension in the evening? So of course it's the Sellwords. The Sellwords of the Sun. I'm not even sure. I don't have all the answers yet. I'll find the last answers with you. I'm looking at the time again because at 5:30 I have to unplug. So Bomelo, the witch hunter from Mark of the Beast, is still there. They solved the Mark of the Beast really quickly, and they sort of took over his job, and he's a bit angry about that. And he's not too happy of how things went along. He is not a transformed cultist or whatever. He's just a good old plain witch hunter. So he's going to be part of the Sellwords of the Sun thing. The cloak and dagger politics is really what will go on. I wanted to do a Rough Nights at 3 Feathers. It's an adventure from Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay that had multiple threads crossing one another at very precise timings. And I thought this could be a great idea. I didn't have time to do that, so it won't be that. The Thistle, what tools do I need? The Thistlehold memo is just a document about Thistlehold with all the descriptions, like every information about the places, like the key information, all centered at the same place. Sources and clues is when they do library research, create some sources like books and tales and stuff like that in advance regarding different topics that they're researching. So when they're in the library, I can say, okay, you find this book with this title from this author, and they say blah, blah, blah. So it just makes it a bit more real, I'd say. I can't always do it, of course, but if I can, I'll do some of that. At least I tried to do some of that. The NPC timelines, I just didn't finish, I think, my prep. So I started something here in the timeline. Everything is a bit up in the air, but doesn't matter. Event ideas to spice things up. I'll think of something again. And the PC-driven scenes detail. So that's the most important thing, because they sent me what they want to do during this downtime. So that's what I started with. So that's what I prepared the most. So I'll show you what I have done and why I did it that way. So this here is very simply the opening scene. The Raven descends on Beau. I decided that the witch Yagaba in Ravern form will come down from the skies, you know, the sky darkening at the end of the day with the snow falling. And she will meet Bo somewhere. Bo wants to go see the alchemist, so I said I want to start with him, so I will start with him and I will say, okay, you're leaving the Ordo Magica tower and you want to go see the alchemist, fine. And maybe when he leaves from the alchemist, or maybe on the way to the alchemist. And she's very interested by Bo because he's a very strange goblin. So she has a personal curiosity about this character, about this PC. And that's very important for me because it's fun when you have an interaction with an NPC that there maybe put two layers of motivation and information about the NPC. First thing is what does this PC know? What can this PC deliver as plot pertinent information? All the traditional intrigue stuff. What are there any secrets? Blah blah blah. But the second part that's very often forgotten by GMs, and some GMs don't even really care about that because some GMs don't want to role play the dialogue completely. They just want to keep it very archetypal. So you're meeting the captain of the guards. He's a captain. He's sitting behind a big desk. He has a lieutenant on the side, and he talks with authority, and he goes straight to the point. And you'll never know if that guy has a dozen kids, and I don't know, is really likes would be like ready to pay a strong amount of money to get some good tobacco. Little quirks like that can really make the character more real, more alive, more human. And beyond these little just personality quirks, there's what kind of person does this character like or hate, just personality wise. Because for example, in this case, the witch Yagaba, she's sent as a messenger to ask the characters, the PCs, to come to Nighthome for a feast, because Agramai Kalfas has demanded to meet the people that last saw his nephew Eran Kalfas. Eran Kalfas was the Templar that got slain in the Vale. Agramai Kalfas, big spoiler here, so again, it's for GMs only, these videos. If you're a player, please leave right now. But Agramai Kalfas is one of the bureaucrats one of the rulers of Thistlehold. He's one of the people under Lacifar Nightpitch. And he's also the prince, the secret sorcerer of the Sacred of the Old Blood, this cabal of nobles. So he's a character that's going to become important later in the campaign. And I wanted them to meet him just for fun. And I thought that at this point would be that was the perfect timing, because they killed his nephew. So she's there, Yagaba, to invite the group, and she chose Bo as their mouthpiece. Instead of going to see the big important characters of the group, she went to see the sidekick, the unimportant, bizarre goblin that invokes Prios all the time. That would be the first scene of the night, actually. And I think it's a strong scene because it puts a character that was a bit on the side in front. It introduces Yagaba, which they already saw from afar in one quick meeting after Mark of the Beast. But they don't know much about her. She's still a very mysterious figure. So I wrote here, Yagaba is young and beautiful under the scary face paints, wears a thick black cloak of raven feathers and multiple golden rings. I just added a little bling there because, I don't know, I like bling. I imagine that the barbarians like showing off their money. Of course, the witches maybe don't do as much of that usually, But she's a witch in a foreign land. She's not she's a funky girl. She's not abiding by all the traditions. She's doing something really strange. So she's a strong personality. She's discreet, but she's a very powerful woman with a her own motivations. She's not just Lassifor's night sidekick and consort. After that, we might continue with Beau at Yorgois. So, okay, Wild, the ogre magician, he told me he wants to study. So he wants to study a ritual in the library of the ritualists. Wild studies instantly. That's in French, but Kullinan Furia is going to come by to know what he's looking for. He will ask him why he wants to become a magician more than understand where he comes from. He's sort of going to poke at the fact that the ogres don't know where they were born, and they come out of the forest with a blank minds. I'm just giving a little scene where we can see it's a bit like Gandalf studying at the libraries of Minas Tirith. You know, it's just a short scene. You see him looking in books, and it just says that okay, he's studying. So it just gives you a taste of what it is, what it looks like when he studies. And so every time later when Wild will say, "Oh, I go back to the tower to study," the players will have something in mind when he says that. It won't just be some abstract thing. It also opens up the possibility for me to, at any point, I can say, while you're studying, this person comes by. And the scene has been set for once, so the people sort of have an idea of what the place looks like, how, you know, is it a bustling library with tons of people studying, or is it just a very dark, small library where he's all alone and could maybe even be assassinated, you know, between two bookcases. So Mikariol is also doing the same thing. He's going to meet Eufrynda because he wants to become a pyromancer, and she is the pyromancer master of the order in Thistlehold. And she will use her leverage over the library of the pyromancers to try to get Mikariol really on her side. She's starting to feel the heat. Cornelio is really unhappy that she played behind his back and all that. So she needs as many allies as she can get. So might be a bit of like a negotiation there. Lodemei, that's the Templar girl. She's going to be offered a new cell, a new room outside of the temple in one of the big houses around the temple because Elfeno wants her to bring in some new Templars. Baumelo would ask for a meeting with Lodemei because Baumelo sort of had a deal with her. He's sort of like his eyes on the Copper Crown, even though he doesn't trust her. So he's going to continue to try to have this authority over her. The commander Erdogai, he's Lodemei's father. He's in the Temple of Ophelia, which is a fortress basically down in the Prior's domain. I just wrote that. What does he want? What is his motivations? Because the player playing Lodemei told me that he wants to write a letter to his father to ask for some help. And what I decided, that's an interesting part. What I decided is that during at the beginning of the campaign at Prior's Pass, when we played Howling of the Damned Gods, which is a great adventure, and in that adventure, some Templars of Dead Prios. It's like a schism of the Templar order. Part of them will declare a new church of the Dead Prios, and that will become the Templar order because the high commander of all Templars, Jacobo Veara, he's the one behind this move. He wants to separate himself from the Curia, from the normal Church of Prios, and but there will be when this event will happen, when Jacobo Veara will ask the Templars to swear allegiance to the new church of the Dead Prios, there will be a purge. Some of them will refuse, will have to flee, and some will be killed because it might get ugly when this happens. And that, of course, is something that will happen really close to Lodemei. That's something that I want for her character, is that she's going to go through this schism and it's going to be a rough time. So so I decided, because there was some really good Templar characters in that adventure, that Lodemei went out to capture. Because basically what I had done is that the Templars left her Temple of Ophelia, knowing some messenger, some spy told them that the heretic Mother Elsana was coming back from Alberetor under the protection of the Black Cloaks as a prisoner, and they would attack the prisoner convoy and steal her and put her to the torch, basically to make her pay for her sins. And the Templars that left the Temple of Ophelia left on their own accord, without the approval of the commander of the temple, Lodemei's father. So she just in her backstory, we just decided that she heard them talking about this unofficial mission, and they left really early in the morning, and she saw them leave, and she just decided to take a horse and go after them to catch them, like a brash young knight that she is. And so she followed them all the way up to Prios Pass, and with the help of the other PCs, they captured the Templars, brought them back, and they were thrown in jail for judgment. So of course, the later judgment is not going to be the one that she expects, because Jacobo Veara secretly supports those fanatics. And her father, Commander Erdogai, is not a very strict commander. He thinks that they can come back. He wants to use his best soldiers as best as he can. So he just put them in jail and had them think of their sins. So when the opportunity arrives to send some more Templars to Thistlehold, he will send them to Lodemei. And he will, of course, say to Lodemei, this is their last chance. I send them to you so they can redeem their sins. So it's going to be a really interesting part of the story. But that will come later, because she's just going to send a letter. We'll see what happens. Okay, the Sellwords of the Sun. That's the main possible enemy. If there's some action tonight, it's going to be around them. So what do they do? What's going on with them? Baumelo knows that they exist because he is the one that gave a letter to Cargoi Salamos from GCB Guy, the first tier of the church, and that handout, this secret letter, is something that you can find in Wrath of the Warden. And I found it interesting that the higher up, it's like the Pope, basically is encouraging fanatics all over the place to assert the dominance of the Church of Prios. And so Baumelo, he becomes the messenger of the Pope to Cargoi Salamos. So he's totally aware that Cargoi is one of his men in Thistlehold. And so he doesn't necessarily know about the Sellwords as such, but he knows that Cargoi is an ally. I was thinking that the Sellwords would be the descendants of soldiers who fought in the Great War. So it's the sons and daughters of people that have the scars of the Great War in their bones, or people that saw their home and lands destroyed. So it's people that are really, really into the Prios God of War thing. That's where he recruits them, because I need to create more detail about these, because they will be investigating on them. So I want to add some detail. So their first move will be to use yellow paint on the toad square, because it should be ripped down and destroyed. It's the skeleton of an abomination. It doesn't deserve to be a statue. They'll do the same thing on the witch and familiar, because they will have learned that there's a witch in there. And then they will do the same thing on Idagai's shop, and then they will burn down the mission house, and then they'll do the yellow paint on the academy. They'll rouse a mob to stone Wild, and they will kill Master Vernam at some point, because they will learn that that he's an elf lover. So maybe they won't kill him. Maybe they'll just torch the academy, and in the fire Master Vernam will die or something like that. I don't know. At least I'm after him, because he didn't die in Mark of the Beast, and I really would like for him to die. just because it's fun, it's tragic, it's dramatic, but also because it opens the way for Anadea for later. So I was thinking, how will they try to learn information about them? I don't know. They're going to use maybe the yellow paint to know who sells it and everything. So I wrote all the story about what's the yellow paint, who mixes it. They could get some info there. Edogai has contacts. Edogai is also a mage, and he has a shop, and he's a tinkerer and a blacksmith, and he knows a lot of antique dealers and treasure hunters. So so this is what will happen if he uses his network. And maybe just a tip. Somebody tips off that they're going to do a move at some point. So if I want the characters to be able to intervene and stop the sellswords doing some vandalism, then the tip could come from someone, and it will be really time sensitive. Like, it's going to happen now. So the people that get the tip might have to go by themselves to do something. It might not be the whole party. Lodemei and Malesio. She told me, player playing. You see how complicated this game is going to be. So much stuff. So you see that there's like the players want to do a lot of things, and I just create a little paragraph for each, just to give me some food for thought when we play it. So I'm not completely empty-handed when I get there. So the next one is Lodemei. She saved the Templar Malesio. Templar Malesio was the other Templar that was with Eran Kalfas at the Vale, and Malesio is said to her, "You saved my life. I am your man now." And so she's going to ask him if he can bring in some Templars on his side. So I just gave a bit more information about why he was with Eran Kalfas, what they were going to do, blah blah blah. After that, the first visit to the mission house, that will happen very soon, I think. So I will take some inspiration from what's written in Wrath of the Warden. As I said before, that was a side quest from Wrath of the Warden, so I do have some information about that. But most of the information in Wrath of the Warden is about the sellswords, is about how they try to torch the mission house, how to pursue them, capture them, get to their HQ and all of that. The attack on the mission house won't happen when they visit it for the first time. That's for sure. Because I just introduced the idea that there might be a threat. So it would be really like too on the nose to have the attack happen as soon as they get there. So I think that I prefer that they see the other moves that I wrote before. So they see there's a build-up. So they might think of ways to defend the mission house, but then they'll attack elsewhere. So they might... I don't know what... That's the fun part of being a GM. I don't know what they're going to do. And I can't wait to see. I can't wait to find out. So that's why I just put so many elements in when I flesh out the sellswords. I fleshed out with how you can maybe find them and what are their plans. So one last thing I could say about that is that they know that Edogai and his flaming servant are more powerful than they thought. They will have like the instruction to not confront the PCs if their numbers are not overwhelmingly better. They're very wary, but they're still weak, and I won't make them stronger, but they will be very wary and hard to get. So Anadia and Arkel timeline, I didn't have time to do that. History of the Hold. So this he's doing this. He's doing this. This continues. But the PCs are not suspecting anything, so this is just going on behind the scenes. Vernam's friends want the crown. I think that we'll see. That's in the elements that I have to put pressure on this story is the sellswords, the build-up of their actions, their vandalism, and the elves that are becoming impatient about the Copper Crown and want the Copper Crown to go back to the tomb, to be entombed forever. So I don't know what will happen, how I will do it yet, but I know that right now it's Tarakel, the elf that is in contact with Vernam. This elf is the main force behind the moves of the Iron Pact right now. So I know nothing about this elf apart from his name, but I'm using him. So so yeah, we'll see how it happens. But what I'm hoping here is that they will ally, like Mikariol could ally with Eufrynda, the pyromancer. She could convince him that they need to sort of ignore Cornelio and do stuff in his back, and then they could plot a trip to the tomb, and that could be done without Kullinan Furia's help, because Kullinan Furia took over the Vale. She knows that, Eufrynda. She won't tell anyone, but she knows that she's going back to the Vale with Kullinan Furia, and he's the boss there. So she would like to have her own mission that she's the owner of, and that would be the mission to the tomb. So if she hears about what the elves want and everything, like everything could converge, and they could all agree that we need to get there and bring back this crown. What I hope is that they will do so, and they will be the first ones to go there. If for some reason they want to do something else, then I might send Senia first, and then the adventure, the Tomb of Dying Dreams, would happen as written. But if they want to go very early, I might just say that they're the first ones to get there, and that's okay too. This big scene, these are the things that I prepared. See a few pages of notes, and why I really went overboard with time is because I also continued my work on Thistle, the district by district work. So that's just long, because I have to collate. I have to get information from multiple PDFs for each location, just to make sure that I have everything in one place. I'm basically doing the job that they didn't do when they wrote the books, and that's okay. I don't mind. I know how creation works. I mean, it's an ongoing process. Anyways, so the last scene in my notes, the last big scene, is the feast at Lassifor's place. When I prepared session 35, I thought that this feast would be like almost similar to what happened at the Ordo Magica, but then we played that scene at the Ordo Magica, and it was really so satisfying, and I don't want more of that. So I decided to tone it down. I decided that actually Yagaba is very curious to know who these strange people are. Lassifar Nightpitch, he wants to know how come the church, the Ordo, and this new guy, Erlaber Haras, teamed up on this mission during the winter, and he's pretty curious. The witch Yagaba has her own reasons, and I just picked up some information about Adair Gorinder. Not much information about him, but he's the right-hand man of Lassifar, so he's an important man. So this information here I picked up in some book somewhere. What is their take on the expeditions into Davakar? Is it good, bad? So that could be some table talk during the feast. And here I have my list of guests. So this feast, the objective of this feast is to be like in a situation where there's less tension politically, and it seems more relaxed, but in fact darker things are happening, because we know that Agramike Alphas is the bad guy and he's there. So whatever the PCs reveal there, they're basically telling a bad guy about it. Okay, so last things in this document is the downtime rumors. So I just picked up the rumors from the books because they're fun. Just have them there. I'll have a dozen Dragools attack Wade's Crossing. Of course, they'll just learn about that. And that the reason for that is so they understand that the Vale is emptying of Dragools. The Dragools have lost their master and they're just sort of returning to their homes or something. And so it makes the Vale less threatening and more tempting to get back to. And that's it. And just as I finish, because I see that I'm getting late, this is what it looks like, my document. Central District, Thistle. So for each location, I'll have just some description of what it looks like, the people that are there, maybe a few notes if needed, page references if needed, all of this. And I'll make it available when it's done. The Southern District that I was doing today, because they might go in that area a bit more, I haven't finished. So that just takes a long time, but once it's done, it's done. And those little tables that I showed you last time. And lastly, I just, maybe I could show you, I added a few portraits. I use this portrait. I don't know if it's the right one. Maybe it's some other guy, but I don't know. I like it for Adair Gorinder, so I'm going to use this one. We've got Yagaba and Lassifar. They're going to meet these two. Anadea's there. They already met her. And Eufrynda, Furia, Agrama is there. I really like to have those on hand, so that's why I always create this kind of big super poster with tons of stuff, because I can zoom in on elements as I GM and say, okay, you guys are here, blah blah blah. This is what the west gate looks like. This is the south gate. This is the east gate. This is the north gate. This is Aloban's ring, wing ladle. So there you go. So that's really useful. So for the prep of this game, this is what I have. So you can see that it's sort of all over the place. It's not totally finished. It's not, that's life, that happens. So I'll tell you in the next video what happened with this session. Did I get something good out of this? And until then, if you want to support the channel, of course, as ever, the comment stuff and liking and the bells and all of these things are always good. And you can check out Playing with Goblin, an adventure that I wrote. It's available on DriveThruRPG. I put the link in the description below. So there you go. So thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.